down with me. I have two trial attorney experts. We have John Hilliard, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor. Ashley McMahan now joining us, the Law Ladies owner as well as trial attorney. Thank you both for staying with me. Let's start with the most recent thing and then go backwards from there. I would love if I could start with you, Ashley, what you thought of the testimony of the victim, Calvin Phillips' sister, who was the first one to testify today.
Well, I have to say that anytime I'm watching a direct examination, of course, I'm in my head thinking, well, what would I ask as defense counsel on cross-examination of this witness? And I have to hand it to this defense attorney. I wasn't sure if he was going to get there, but he did get there. And get there, wow. I mean, at the end of his cross-examination, and it was so smooth the way he did it, he got her to admit that she's got bias in this case, that she wanted to push it along, and that every time she went over to the house, she was actively looking for evidence in the case. I mean, if that shell casing doesn't have the word reasonable doubt engraved across it by the time we're at the end of this trial, I don't know where we went awry, but he did a really excellent job of showing that she had not only motivation and bias in this case, but I mean, every time that you talk as a defense attorney, you're going to say, look, the detectives, the police that were involved didn't do everything they could have done in this case. You've got a family member of a victim finding a shell casing 5 months after these murders. I mean, that just screams unrealistic to me and sounds like, shenanigans, something's up. And I think the defense attorney made his point very well, and I think that's going to come out in closing. And I think that's really going to hammer her credibility, unfortunately, in this case. If she did come by the shell casing by simply honest means, I think it hurt the prosecution.
And the defense attorney is very personable. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't attacking. I don't think he offended anyone in the way that he asked questions and was getting everything working with the Elmo. But let me ask you, John, to weigh in. Would you agree or disagree with Ashley's assessment of the cross-examination?
I agree with Ashley. That was what I call a soft cross. And you have to treat these kinds of individuals. So, it's the victim's sister. There's no doubt he's been murdered. So I think he did an excellent job. Now, the next question is, how did she come by that shell casing? If she put the shell casing there, how did she get it? And I think the prosecution's or the defense is going to have to put together some kind of idea of how she would have gotten the shell casing and how it got in that particular spot. I wondered about the video when the lawyers were asking about the videotape, how long it had been there and how it came to be that it didn't videotape people leaving the house or coming into the house, those kinds of things. That was not explained to me. The dog tag, then she found the dog tag also. There was some explanation about that in the defense lawyer's opening statement. At the same time, I want to hear whether or not anybody took fingerprints off the dog tag. Dog tag has a flat side. Whether anybody took fingerprints off of the shell casing. I noticed a police officer, when he picked up the shell casing, I don't think he had on a glove. So I would be interested to see how that develops. I haven't read or heard anything about that, whether they fingerprinted those items or not. But that would certainly be interesting if they didn't. Then I think that would throw even more doubt onto those items.
Right. You just identified exactly what I was waiting for, which is I'm looking forward to testimony to hear whether or not there were fingerprints on the dog tag, because that was surprising evidence to me that she found that in the house and that it had Christian Martin's name on it. But also as to the shell casing, I think we're going to look, and I think the jury probably is looking for those pieces of evidence or waiting to hear what are they going to hear next about the shell casing and the dog tags. You're both going to stay with me, John, Ashley. Thank you so much for being here with us on Court TV. We are going to squeeze in a quick break. I just want to tell you where we are and the posture of both cases we're covering. In this case out of Kentucky, they will resume court tomorrow at 9 a.m. Now, in the Durst trial out of California, we're going to keep you posted, bring you more about that after the short break here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. We have breaking news. Sad that famed defense attorney F. Lee Bailey has passed away. His former law partner Kenneth Fishman confirmed Bailey's death to the Boston Globe. Bailey was a legendary legal character. He was a Marine, a graduate of Boston University and of Harvard Law School. Bailey successfully argued in 1964 before the U.S. Supreme Court in the Sam Shepard case. The High Court overturned the Ohio doctor's murder conviction that was the inspiration for the TV show The Fugitive. Decades later, Bailey was part of O.J. Simpson's dream team and famously cross-examined Mark Furman about whether or not he had ever used the N-word when talking about African Americans. Now, during Derek Chauvin's murder trial, Bailey's legacy and the successful appeal of Dr. Sam Shepard's murder conviction was actually part of the defense team's argument for a change of venue or a new trial. Shepard versus Maxwell is the 1966 Supreme Court decision that found Dr. Samuel Shepard, an Ohio doctor convicted of murdering his wife, did not get a fair trial because of pre-trial publicity and news coverage of the case. F. Lee Bailey was a young attorney when he successfully argued Shepard's appeal, and he spoke to Court TV anchor Julie Grant about that very thing.
How does it feel to have made legal history?
Well, it felt very good because, very frankly, the press needed a spanking. And the Sam Shepard case was that spanking is the first time they'd ever been criticized by courts for excesses during a trial.
It was a circus in that courtroom, wasn't it, when he was convicted?
Justice Bell of the Ohio Supreme Court called it a circus for the news media, and the U.S. Supreme Court, when I finally got there, called it bedlam.
What was it like arguing before the U.S. Supreme Court?
I thought it's one of the few things in life that was as good as it's cracked up to be. The justices were sharp. I had already won the case, I think, before I ever got in there, but I put on a dog and pony show by holding up all the headlines of the Cleveland press, which were outrageous.
Were they the worst?
Worst I've ever seen. I mean, why isn't Sam Shepard in jail? That's a question for the courts and cops, not for newspapers. Next day, they arrested him. It was far too much power in the press at that time, and the courts just refused to regulate it, partly because in Ohio, everybody is elected, and so it's better to be popular than judicial.
Sure. At one point, wasn't there a radio show broadcasting from the courtroom when Dr. Shepard was having his first trial?
I don't know about the radio show, but I know jurors were sitting, the press was sitting right next to the jury box. So the press could overhear their comments as the evidence came in.
What was that like then when you took the case to trial for him the second time?
Well, long before we got to trial, I came into the case just to supervise the lie detector test and nothing more. He'd lost 11 appeals, and most people thought there was nowhere to go. And they wouldn't let me do that. And then a cop in Cleveland said, if Shepard is innocent, I don't want to know it. And I said, this case is rotten. So I went over to federal court and got me a little writ and began to slap people around with it till I let him out.
We know that the Sam Shepard case inspired the drama series The Fugitive.
The name, Dr. Richard Kimball. The destination, Death Row State Prison. The irony, Richard Kimball is innocent. The Fugitive.
And then when you got to do the retrial 10 years later after his conviction, did you use that to your advantage in any way, trying the case?
Yes, I certainly did use it to my advantage. The Fugitive was then a TV show and later a movie, but I kept waiting for the prosecutor to ask jurors, do you watch The Fugitive? And he never did, and I never opened my yap because everybody knew The Fugitive was innocent, and I had, maybe for the first time in my career, the presumption of innocence actually in the jury box.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
And you have always believed in his innocence, in Dr. Shepard's innocence. Tell us why.
For the same reason that in many cases, I believe in the innocence of a person that others may not, because a very careful assembly of the facts either allows room and other elements to exist in a murder case, or an important element is missing. And when that happens, the defendant is excluded and the police should be looking elsewhere. The problem is, once they fasten on an accused, they stop looking, and the actual killer can be sitting over in a corner smirking.
Thank you to our own Julie Grant for a great interview with a legend. Still with me, criminal defense attorney John Hilliard, trial attorney Ashley McMahan. I have to tell you both, when I was very young, my father took us traveling a lot. We went to San Francisco. F. Lee Bailey had an office on the street with a plate glass window. My father was not at all an attorney, but took me by there because he said he is one of the defense greats. He knew that as a layperson, as a college professor who had nothing to do with law. So in the last couple of minutes that we have, I'd like to start with you, Ashley. What do you think of when you hear the name F. Lee Bailey?
I mean, he's just larger than life, isn't he? Sharp as a tack to the end. He completely changed the game. I think of, when I hear his name, I think of In the True Pursuit of Justice, because he's one of those characters that you're like, wow, he really took up a fight that he believed in and doggedly did not give up until he won, no matter what the outcome was going to be. And, yeah, he's a living legend, and he will be sorely missed in the legal community.
Absolutely. John, what are your thoughts in the last 30 seconds or so?
I certainly agree with Ashley, and F. Lee Bailey had a lot to do with my legal education, not because I knew him personally, but I read all of his books, The Defense Never Rests, and that was even, high school, college, law school. He got arrested one time in California, and then wrote a whole book about how not to get arrested in California, which it's really sort of funny. That's a good book. But he was certainly a hero of mine.
Yeah, absolutely agree. A great legend in the legal community, brilliant mind, defense attorney. He will be missed, thinking of all of his friends and family and the death of F. Lee Bailey. Stay tuned. We're going to come back on the other side here on Court TV Live.